you give me $1 and I'll make you at least $5 back.
What are the unscalable things that you are personally doing?
With the right personality and the right mindset, you can teach anyone literally anything.
In terms of B2B or B2C, how is it different from North America?
Being able to actually capture a story doesn't have to look pretty, but the actual part of content creation is going to be massive for marketers.
Hey everybody, welcome to Thriving in Australia podcast. Today we have Ken, an amazing marketer. And without further ado, Ken, can you tell everybody a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, so I guess my name is Ken, of course, and I'm the head of growth at Connected Culture. We're a digital marketing agency here in Australia, and we essentially run digital marketing ads, emails. I like to tell people that you give me $1 and I'll make you at least $5 back. That's kind of a simple way to put it. I've been in the agency space for close to over 6 years now, so plenty of experience there, and it's quite interesting to see how things are evolving at the moment. And I think a lot of big changes will be coming in 2025 for sure.
Oh, that's fantastic. Can I ask you this? Like, why marketing? When did you feel like, hey, this is what I want to work with, right? And
Yeah,
and if I'm not wrong, if I'm not wrong, you are mostly focusing on digital marketing. Am I saying it right?
yeah. Digital marketing for sure. I think a lot of the stuff kind of bleeds into other types of marketing as well. But I think because digital marketing is just the most accessible for many businesses, the barrier to entry is much lower. I think that's kind of where most people want to be spending their dollars. And to, I guess, answer your first question, kind of goes back to high school, really. I did really, really well in high school with business. So we call it the HSC here, which is kind of like your final graduation exam. I actually got 100% in the finals. So that was kind of a big indication for me, like, okay, maybe I kind of really like this. It's all I really paid attention to in high school, business specifically. And then the more research I did into business, I realized a lot of the functions stem from marketing, and even down to your product, like just simply the 4 Ps as well. And so I just dived deep straight into marketing. Straight, I went to university for it at Macquarie University here in Australia. Don't know how relevant a university degree is as much now. You can definitely learn a lot of things online, but yeah, that's kind of how I got my foot into it. And yeah, so I've loved every single bit of it and love seeing it transform.
Fantastic. So digital marketing is a big place, right? Can you tell everybody exactly where do you think you help most with your clients or companies that you work with?
Mhm. So a lot of the time, I'm identifying companies' weaknesses. So I guess you could put that down to strategy, but I think a lot of the conversations I'm having with business owners is I really love their product or I really love their brand. I see what they're doing in the market. It's really impressive. But then it's just so obvious, I guess, to me when I'm reviewing their business as a whole that there's this really big glaring spot that needs to be addressed. And they either don't have the facilities to address it, or they're currently working with a team or have an in-house team, whatever the situation may be, and they're not addressing it. So I'd love to come in and just, introduce myself, say, hey, these are the things I'm noticing. I think you're doing a lot of things that are really great, but I think if you could get this right, things could be really different for you and you could really improve. And I think business owners really appreciate that, especially when you're not coming to them with a hard sell. I actually just step in and give them the advice and tell them this is exactly what you should be doing. And then, a couple of weeks later, I usually get a call back saying, hey, remember that chat we had? Do you think you can help me out with it? So that's most of the work that I do is, I guess you could, yeah, like you could call it strategy. I step in and say, I think this is big opportunity for you. What do you think about it? This is how you can do it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And we both know this. At the end of the day, clients want to hear, hey, you need to do SEO, right? You need to work on SEO or you need to do this, do that. No, I think client wants to be heard, right? They want you to ask or us to ask, like, hey, what are your problems? What are the problems that you're facing, right? And then ask the basic or fundamental questions, and based on that, then suggest what they should do instead of just throwing whatever I know how to do to them, like, hey, you got to do this because I know how to do that. So yeah, absolutely, I'm with you. Let's talk about something exciting. 2025 is here. What is your take on 2025? And I would love to talk about the whole thing in both ways so that founders who are listening they can get good things out of it, as well as marketers. So,
Mm.
twofold question. Number one, in your opinion, what are the top one or two or three things, whatever you're comfortable with, that founders should be focusing on in 2025 when it comes to digital marketing, right? In terms of execution part. And on the second part, you can talk. Can you please touch upon, in your opinion, what is like one top skill that you would suggest any digital marketer to master so that they become unstoppable? What are your
Yeah.
thoughts?
Okay. Yeah. I love that question. That's really good. Okay. There's a lot for me to play with there. Um, I think for 2025, there's a lot of people making I guess a lot of guesses on what will be really popular, what kind of trends will come through. I don't know if a lot of them will be true for Australia. Like a really big one is live selling. That's really popular in the Asian market at the moment. I don't know if 2025 is the year that Australia adopts that. I would love to see it because it's something really new, and I'd love to get my hands messy with that. But I don't think 2025 is the year for that. It might be maybe 2 to 3 years away, even maybe a bit sooner than that, but I don't know if 2025 is the year for that. But I do think for founders, and this kind of will go over the whole 2025 strategy, I think you need to start showing people the ugly in your business and in your own, I guess, life as a founder. And I think if you can start to show people how difficult or how easy or how fun or how tricky it is being a business owner is going to be a really big key to your success. I'm finding a lot of the businesses who are creating content simply just talking about how difficult it was maybe 2 years ago on packing orders in their warehouse and how they moved to a 3PL system and, suddenly packing orders are so much easier. It has nothing to do with the product that they're selling, but they're talking about their business and people relate to that so much. And it's even stronger when it's coming from a founder. And I think show people the ugly is kind of the way I would like to describe that. And I find it works really, really well, especially even for ads, in terms of like generating brand awareness. You can run ads towards creative like that. But simply organically, I think you really need to start telling the story about how you started, how it's going, and you just being in the trenches in your business because that way you're really selling people on a story about your business because you might be selling a pen and you know there's thousands of companies selling a pen, but if you can really convince people that you're an interesting person and all that, that there's a story behind why purchasing this pen will make all the difference to your life and how it will make a difference to their life. People really love buying into those stories. And I think if you're a founder that is too scared or is uncomfortable with making content, you will seriously be left behind moving forward. Because I just think there's such a big opportunity in being able to sell those raw stories that most other businesses, like let's say you're a clothing brand and you'll be able to compete with the Nikes, with Adidas, with Gymshark by creating content that people will resonate with, and you'll find people will spend their dollar with you because they resonate with that story. So I think that's what founders definitely should be focusing on. And the other thing which I think is fantastic that you've written a book about is getting the right people around you. I think the biggest issue a lot of founders face is that they hire for talent, which oftentimes is actually the worst hiring strategy. And I much prefer hiring for personality. I would love to hear your take on this, but I much prefer to hire on personality because I truly believe with the right personality and the right mindset, you can teach anyone literally anything. And I truly believe that. And I think if business owners, founders could truly take that advice on board and when they go into the interview, just see, do you actually enjoy having a cup of coffee with this person? Could you bear spending, 8, 9, 10 hours a day with them? And that is, I think, the key to hiring as opposed to, seeing that they're really proficient at SEO or really good at running ads or can create really good content. Most people with the right mentality and the right personality can learn anything. So I guess that would be two things I would suggest for founders. And for marketers, I think this one is kind of a bit of a interesting take. I think it's actually creating high quality content that's engaging. Now, I don't mean creative that looks nice. We don't need any Steven Spielberg produced videos, or we don't need anything, top of the line and crazy like that. But I think if you're good enough in front of the camera or know how to use an iPhone, like an iPhone is plenty, being able to actually capture a story doesn't have to look pretty, but the actual storytelling part of content creation is going to be massive for marketers. If you're an ad buyer, it makes your ad buying much easier. It brings down your cost of acquisition, or CPPs, whatever you're selling. And then, if you're um, an SEO person writing blogs, being able to actually create content, written content that's engaging is also super important. And then if you're someone who creates organic content, again, like being able to sell those stories, it may be the most simple product, like I said, a pen. Like if you can really make selling a pen to someone as interesting as possible, that's going to be the biggest game changer, because I find people are buying less and less from the big brands, and they want to be spending their dollar with brands that have impact, or that that they know that their dollar is actually going to a small business owner and is actually going to make an impact, rather than just feeding the bottom line of a big conglomerate. So I think that's where I would put a lot of my focus going into 2025, and really upskill in that content creation, both video, photo, and written.
I love it. I love it. And it kind of touch, upon this video content, doesn't matter, founder or marketers, right? When it comes to the founder, you were talking about how founders should talk about their day-to-day life in their business, the good things about running the business, the bad things, right? Their struggles 2 years ago, the struggle they were facing. So I think both of them we can put under personal branding. Let's dive deep into that. I genuinely
Mhm.
believe it will help people, and I'm super excited about it because I'm with you. Absolutely, I also genuinely believe that you don't have to have high production videos on LinkedIn or anywhere
Yeah.
else. It's a matter of, will that piece of content help somebody else, right? Will that solve somebody else's problem? And the problem
Yeah.
doesn't need to be huge, but will that like save somebody's, I don't know, 15 minutes, right? Or even 1 year. If somebody watches a good video or right video and gets a really good perspective on the strategy they should be focusing on 2025, maybe, they were thinking about it, but they were like, you know what? Ken said it. I'm gonna do it. I heard about it a few times, but finally I listened, because I like him and everything. I follow him because he said it. I think I'm gonna do it. So absolutely. Can we talk about that? In terms of consuming content on social media, and in terms of B2B or B2C, how is it different from North America? Like, how do Australians take content? Do they like flashy things? Do they not like flashy things? Do they like the story? Do they like the social aspect of it? In your opinion, what can be the right approach to produce content? And I'm not talking about the type part, but like what are the basic differences from the
Mhm.
way an American would, consume content than an Australian would?
Yeah, I guess in terms of a personal branding kind of thing, in Australia, we suffer from tall poppy syndrome. I don't know if that's a term you've heard before, but essentially anyone who gets a bit too big for their boots, or, someone who kind of is successful, but kind of flaunts it too much, or just it does a little bit too much with, a little bit too showy, doesn't really work well in Australia. And I think, regardless of if you are showy, we still do suffer from that that tall copy syndrome in Australia. So I think when you're creating content, even though you want to do everything to convince people, or show people that you're successful and what your ideas will help them, and that you've done it for your business and all this stuff, I think there is a fine line, however, in showing off too much. Like you want to show people, but not show off to people. And I think a lot of founders get that wrong oftentimes, and they just end up kind of turning off a lot of their audience instead of actually inspiring them. Whereas when you look at, other markets like North America, having a video in a Lambo, and, driving around and kind of talking in the Lambo and doing all this stuff actually does well because there's, I guess they have a bit more of an aspirational culture where if they see people doing those things, they want to be like that. Whereas in Australia, I think it kind of turns off people. And, and it's not to say that those people who do that are not, are narcissistic or like, not humble at all. But I just think in Australia, that culturally, that's something that we suffer with. So as a founder, I think you should definitely be conscious of that. And there are many ways to show what you do works, and that if people listen to you, and that you can have a voice in that space without kind of having to do that, I guess. And one way to do that is just explaining stories. And I think, had, and that's why that content piece is so important. If you can explain the story and actually maybe use a whiteboard and draw things out, I think there's so many ways that you can convince people that you're successful, without having to kind of do all the flashy stuff to get people's attention. So I think I hope that's kind of answering your question. I think that's definitely something, people should be concerned about in Australia. But as a whole, my biggest advice would be on a personal brand, even for myself. It's only something that I've, I guess, been investing in recently. Is just not worrying about what people have to say. I've been faced with way more positive feedback and positive reaction than I have with any negative. Like I don't even hear the negative because it's so small, and the positive is so much louder. So definitely something to focus on there.
And to be honest with you, I know that you think that's what the local people, that's the way they take it, and I genuinely believe world is also going towards that. People, there have been a bunch of people who are just always showing their Lambo, always showing their mansion in Dubai, right? Moved out from US or somewhere else and then moved to Dubai, and then this and that. People have started noticing, like, hey, there is a pattern how they would, show this stuff and then sell you something else. And then that probably has nothing to do with how he makes money. So I genuinely believe, yes, there are a lot of people who still buy their courses online,
Yeah,
but I also believe that people have started noticing the pattern, right? The industry has been here for quite some time, where people kind of know that there is a whole industry that is called make money online industry, and show people how to make money online, and then that's how you get rich. So yeah, absolutely. I'm 100% with you. Can we talk about one thing that you have written on your LinkedIn? You said doing the unscalable, right? What do you mean by that? What do you mean doing the unscalable? Is that something that you do? Is that something you promote that others should do? What is the philosophy behind it?
yeah. I love that you asked that because doing the unscalable is so important to me. I do it across everything I do. I think even in work and outside of work, I just think it's a really, really powerful mindset to have. And I think, I've worked with a few suppliers now where, the experience that you have from the sales call, and then the second you sign and pay, the everything that they did for you that was so good in this between the sales call till then, just kind of disappears. You stop getting that same experience because they're, either rely on automations, or they're relying on, things to just kind of work themselves out, and they're not focusing on the things that are unscalable. And putting your time and effort into doing the unscalable things makes all the difference for people's experience. And I think, I'll give an example where, when you're trying to audit an account, there's no AI that can audit a ad account for you properly. I mean, you can probably try to do a bunch of things to try to make that happen for you, or, you know, uh, a CRO audit for a website to see if conversions are where they should be. You can probably find some AI tool to do that for you as well, but then nothing's going to beat the results that you'll get in doing it yourself. And unfortunately, that process is not scalable. So you have to do the unscalable thing. And I think a lot of founders and people in, management positions often are trying to find a new way to just do something that's scalable. All right, let's automate it, and let's just find a new system, a new process, because it's taking up too much time. When in reality, it's not taking up too much time. It's just work that you are avoiding doing. And I think a lot of the stuff that doing the unscalable is just you doing the work that you know needs to be done that you're avoiding. So I think if that's one thing a lot of founders and marketing managers or managers in general can take away from this is that doing the unscalable is so fruitful that you trying to figure out a way to make it scalable is actually damaging your brand and your systems and your processes more than just doing the thing that takes time. And it could be little things like thinking about clients in different scenarios when you're out in the shops and you see something relevant to their brand. You just take a photo or you send them a text or an email to say, hey, I'm just thinking about your brand. I saw XYZ do this. I think it'd be a good idea. We can run a campaign against that or whatever it may be. So doing those things that are unscalable is makes all the difference. And I trust me, with the levels of churn that we have, it's so low that I know it definitely is something that works.
This is fantastic. I loved
Yeah.
how you said it, where is people just, and we're human beings, right? We don't want to work. We just want to survive. That's our
Yeah.
instinct. There obviously there are people who want to scale, and then there are those of us who want to say, "Hey, let's scale this," and by that they just mean I don't want to do this work,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Unfortunately, that's the new meaning of scaling. It's just
I
work
love
that
it.
you don't want to do. Yeah, but
I
there's
love the way
actually a
you have
lot of
put it.
work that needs to be done.
Fantastic. Absolutely. Absolutely. Ken, this was a fantastic podcast. I learned a bunch of things. I knew a few of these things, but like hearing from somebody else gives you that validation, like, hey, you need to
Absolutely.
do this more often. So that's what happened between these two marketers. Ken, thank you so much to be on this podcast, and everybody who is watching this podcast. If you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe our channel and hit that like button. I'll give anything and everything that has to do with Ken below down the description. And if you're listening to this podcast on Apple Podcasts or anywhere else, do subscribe. Thank you so much for listening and see you on the next one.